So with Claude CoWork now on mobile, Claude now runs on your phone, in the cloud, and with your laptop shut. But the real headline here isn't the mobile access, although I will show you what that's like. It's that with the right approach and a few tricks I'm going to show you in this video, I've finally unlocked how to sync a single Claude CoWork setup across multiple devices. The approach I'm going to show you means that you'll be able to now run one unified set of files, memory, and instructions that compound over time and allow you to pick up where you left off across multiple computers on the web browser and on the Claude mobile app. Hi, I'm Simon. Welcome to Systems Made Better. I'm trying to help non-technical people build simpler, more effective systems with AI for your business and your work. So here's the problem a lot of us have been hitting with Claude. I've built out a Claude CoWork operating system, a set of markdown files that you can see here, and it knows all about me and what I do and how I operate. It means that if I say, tell me about what you know about me, it will read all of the files, work through those, and then actually be able to answer with context. But that only works if Claude can actually reach those files. So two things have to be true at the same time. Every update has to sync between every device, and Claude has to read those skills and files in whichever session or whatever platform or computer you're working on. If it can't load them on mobile, then you're straight back to a generic Claude that doesn't know anything about your business. So if you haven't set up your system yet, my CoWork OS template onboards you to Claude CoWork better than 99% of people will manage on their own. We're really proud of it. There's a full video link below on the process of doing just that. And if you're interested in the template as well, you can check it out over at bettercreating.com/CoWork OS. For everyone that already owns it, I'm also going to show you in this video how to make that a multi-device solution using this approach. So here's what's changed with the mobile update and how I'm approaching my system slightly differently. First of all, CoWork lives in three places now. It's on your desktop, on the browser, and on mobile. And these are kind of connected and kind of not connected. So if we jump over to our setup, we obviously have desktop and I have my CoWork set up. So if we go onto the desktop, it looks really different now. You'll see that we have a code tab and a home tab. That used to say chat, CoWork, and code. I don't know, let me know what you make of this in the comments, but I'm not 100% sure I like this new layout, but I see what they're doing. So code, this is a place where you build things. And then we've got home, and this now has two tabs, chat and CoWork. And in terms of layout, you'll also see in recents, we can search by chat and task. Now I believe task will be CoWork tasks and chat will be chats. If in doubt, I would use CoWork because you can now link it to your folders. So I've linked my folder and I've flagged it, starred it, so it's always what it uses. And while we're at it, Fable 5 is now available on a max plan, which is what I'm on. So that's cool. Now, the big new update is that scheduled tasks for CoWork now run in the cloud. That means that your laptop can be shut and Claude CoWork keeps going. Now, if we look at my weekly briefing, for example, I get a lovely report. This is a scheduled task. We have a weekly briefing that is running in the cloud. We can see that because it's got a little cloud sign next to it. So I can then view the recent scheduled tasks and how they've run. So here's the weekly briefing. And what I'm doing is because I can see those artifacts on the computer here, but I can't weirdly see them in artifacts on the mobile. They're not there. It just seemed to be the original chat versions. I'm doing a backup version where I can view the run. This is the session where it ran it automatically, and I can see that report by clicking on it in the chat. So I'm just asking my scheduled tasks to make sure that they provide them as a link in the chat. And there you go. We can look at the week ahead, what I've got planned, who's doing what. Really cool. While we're on the subject of scheduled tasks, there's a couple of little details now that you probably need to keep aware of. One is that tasks set to run on your computer only run while it's awake and online. So you might need to keep it awake. But we're trying to change things to cloud, and it's a little bit tricky. A few things you need to know. If you create a new scheduled task, like my morning briefer that I created, make sure that when you set it up, you're setting it to run automatically on auto approval. Otherwise, it won't be able to complete tasks without you there. Now, you'll notice in this that I'm mentioning actual files within Claude. What we're telling it to do is find those through the folder link via the Dropbox connector. So that's great. we can click save, and that's going to run and it's going to use the connector online. However, if you set this up and said, moved it to your computer, which would allow it to access local files and folders, use apps and tools on the computer. If I do that, that then gives us the option to work in the folder, and you can then select the folder that it works in. You can see it's currently got the option to move it back to the cloud if I want to, but if I now click save with the CoWork folder selected in the actual window and go back to edit, it will now not allow me to move it to the cloud because we've selected the folder. Therefore, if you have existing scheduled tasks that you want to run in the cloud and it's not allowing you to move them to the cloud, you will need to deselect the folder that you've selected them to work within. And then suddenly, if you save that, weirdly, they need to change this interface, go back, you can then move it to the cloud. And we have a copy that runs on the cloud. Now, I'm using mine, as you'll see in a minute, using Dropbox. So whatever cloud storage platform you're running your Claude system on, as long as it has a connector, we then have the option for it to also run in the cloud. So something to test, very exciting though, that we now have this option to run them both on the cloud and then locally with our computer left on. Perhaps that's for jobs where you're using computer use or certain tools on the computer that Claude needs to access. Now, the next thing to remember, if you go to customize, is that skills, these are connected to your Claude AI account, as are connectors. And this means that on mobile, Claude can access any skill and any connector from your mobile CoWork conversation. It can run them. So you can just start a new chat, or you can go into CoWork and start a new task, and it will be able to read your connectors that you've connected to it and the skills. What this really means is that we should remember that mobile can't really reach your local files unless your computer is turned on and awake, but it can reach connectors. That means that if you're storing all of your information on local files, it's tied to one computer. Connectors can reach things like Gmail, Calendar, Dropbox, NAN. So you could run a lot of things from mobile. So there's an opportunity here that we need to spot, which is for us to move our CoWork setup. So I'm going to get into the options you have and the option I've chosen and how you can go ahead and do the same. Because there is a catch we have to watch out for. The sync is only one way to desktop. Desktop apps run locally, sessions start on your mobile and sync everywhere, but they don't come back down and save files to your desktop. So we have this kind of layout, right? Where you've got mobile sync to the cloud, web browsers syncing, scheduled tasks are syncing, but your desktop files, they're not. And that is the problem we need to solve. Why this matters? Well, if your phone can't reach your files, mobile Claude is just another generic Claude. I want to use Claude as a system that works across devices and most importantly, that can be shared by a team. So that's two sides, what we got and the problem we're facing. I think it's now time to build ourselves one consistent Claude OS setup that works on every device. And to do that, we're going to want to stop letting those local folders and files be our source of truth. What that actually looks like on the folder system is going to be this stuff, the About Me folder right here. And we're going to change a bunch of these into skills rather than pages in the folder structure. And then we've got all of our work areas. So all of the files, for example, in content, I've got projects that I'm working on here, like a weekly newsletter project, and that has its own memory. It has the project brief that we work on. And then it has an outputs folder of like the specific newsletters that it helps me create. All of this stuff, we need it to be able to read, and I'd like to be able to do that by talking to my phone, right? But this is all on the desktop, so it won't do it. So we need to move it. There's two layers to the fix. Layer one is your identity. So things like your brand voice and your writing rules, we're going to publish those as skills inside Claude. So what this means is these top three items are skills that were created from my Claude CoWork folder and About Me. So this About Me folder here, who I am, what I do, how I work, has been turned into a skill. And if we look at the skill, you'll see it explains who I am and it puts the exact text into it. That's it. And all this means is that you're moving an MD file, which is local, to become an MD file which can be found as a skill. Now that makes sense for those items. Your writing rules for avoiding AI writing tells, your voice profile, and your about me. So these are the 3 key files in about that I think are worth moving. Things like memory, this is global memory that I get it to create. Things like the context map for where certain items can be found. They should stay at the folder level because they want to be found when it's looking through those files anyway, right? What I have done is I've got Claude in its main Claude MD instruction. I've got it to search identity gate. So it says, make sure that you load my about me files before you act, or if you cannot read them, you are going to find these via the skills option. Now you could just get it to say read these skills first, which I think is probably better. So to create a skill, you'd start a new chat. You would do something like this. Please turn my context map into a skill. I'm going to use that one as I haven't done it. You'll find it in the about me folder, and please create it as a skill and offer it to me to be saved to my account. So let's just do this as an example. All it's really going to do is write you the MD file. It will be labeled and formatted as a skill, and then you can just drop it in to CoWork. So the important thing to remember is that skills attach to your account, not your computer, so they travel everywhere. Okay, so we can just download it. So once you've done this, all you would do is go into Customize, Skills, and click Add, and then upload a skill. You can jump to the item and you would just literally drag and drop it in there and it would be added as a skill in here. I'm not going to do that because I don't actually want to put my context map in there. It's just an example of the process. I think the best ones to do are these kind of identity items, but it might be things like brand values. It might be your ICP that goes in there as a skill. And I would call these foundational skills, foundational identity information. All you're really doing is putting them in there and making sure that your main instructions when you're running Claude reads these files. Simple. Okay, layer 2 is everything else. Your full context, your memory, your project files. That's too big and changes too often to be a skill. So it goes in the cloud storage that Claude reads either locally because it's synced on your desktop or through the connector on mobile if it doesn't have access to desktop. And this is really a kind of 2-level backup because sometimes it might be able to read it when your computer's on, other times it might need to use the connector. So now we need to pick where we want to save these items. Now, if we go to Customize and go to Connectors, what I mean by a connector are things like this. Google Drive. It's able to read things, download things. So you could choose Google Drive. It might be Dropbox, could be your OneDrive. But the point is that you want something that is connected that it can read from. Because what you choose actually depends on how technical it gets, how rigorous it is, or how easy it is to use. These are I think, the best syncing options out there, quickly explained. So our options are GitHub. Git essentially is a rock solid solution for shared files. But basically what you would do is push and pull every session. So for example, at the start of a session, you would want to pull from GitHub and read the files. But at the end of a session, you would have to remember to say, push this to GitHub, unless you have some form of automation. But I think this is probably overkill, and particularly for non-technical teams. Your next option would be Obsidian. Now, this is really clean and simple. Obsidian Sync would allow you to hold MD files in Obsidian and view those, and then you can use the subscription to Obsidian Sync, which then syncs your Obsidian across devices. I've looked into this, and it's great if you use Obsidian, and you could consider it, but it is $4 a month. Then you've got things like mirroring tools like SynthThing and Claude Sync. SynthThing is a really nice idea because essentially you can select, let's say, the folder on your desktop and use SynthThing to sync it onto other devices. But it still doesn't solve the problem of being able to access that folder online on mobile. But my choice would be this. Dropbox. Now, the reason I'm going for Dropbox over G Drive is I love the option that we have built-in sync, and we have make available offline on a Mac. So let's do the migration to Dropbox so you have a fully cloud-served Claude system. Here, I've got Dropbox. And what we could do is create in this folder a new folder called CoWork OS. Now, the great thing we have about this is that this will automatically sync once you've connected your Dropbox to your folder system, and you have this option here, make available offline. So once we've checked that, it will then always be available. I can also manage folder access. So I can be very clear about the people that have permission to access this important information. And we also have the ability to set up two-factor authentication on Dropbox, meaning that we are incredibly secure. I'm not going to do it right now. Security is a big thing with this, and I think that the security levels on Dropbox are pretty solid in that sense. Now, the other thing that's really positive about this folder, we can see it immediately on Dropbox here, and we can see it here, and it's available offline. So the next step is going to be this, installing the Claude MCP connector to connect Dropbox to Claude. What this means is that Claude can have conversations and save Claude generated text to Dropbox and use supported Dropbox features without using Claude. Now, the great thing about this, I think, which is worth remembering, is that it can actually edit individual files. Now, what it means is Claude can use a folder almost as a virtual hard drive, where other platforms don't allow you to do that. Dropbox does. It's got a particularly good level of connection. So let's go back to Claude. We'll go to Customize. We'll go to Connectors. We'll click Add. Browse Connectors. We'll search for Dropbox. There it is, and click Add. And we're going to allow, and it's connected. So what's happened? One, we've taken Dropbox, created a Claude folder, created a CoWork folder, right-clicked it, and made sure it's available offline. We've then gone and copied everything from our old system into it. All of the folders are dropped in and they all exist in the folder. Oh, and by the way, so we're absolutely clear on this, I think I'm going to keep my Claude Code local for now because all of that information stays on the desktop. Claude Code works differently on my desktop, and I'm using GitHub to sync things like the website and push it and publish it. So I'm keeping that local. But CoWork, we're going to move from this local folder here, and we're going to move it somewhere else. So now what we need to do is tell CoWork to consolidate the links. So here I've written a brief, which I will share below for you to use. I've copied my CoWork system from its old home, insert here, and then put it into Dropbox here. You can see both. Please compare them and update everything so the whole system works cleanly from the new Dropbox location. Check the Dropbox copy is as follows. Yep. So we're going to say, check the Dropbox copy is complete. Same files as the old ones, flag anything missing. Find every place that still points to the old location, both inside the folder and anywhere else on my Mac that refers to it, like my global Claude instructions. Update those to the Dropbox path. Claude MD in the Dropbox tells any future Claude how to reach this folder. Read it directly in Dropbox by default, and if that isn't possible on phone or web session, read it through the Dropbox connector instead. Keep it short and top level. I'm going to add, please analyze this task first and make any further recommendations or queries you need to ensure that this process is smooth. And this is where, since I have a max plan, I'm actually going to use Fable. So it's really solid on a big plan. Start the task and allow. So it's now reading through the files and checking if there are any routing instructions that might be outdated, because old skills and scheduled tasks may point to old folders and files. That's the key learning point here. You need to make sure those connections line up. Now, when it's checking them, if you see a little red thing, just click on it and you can see what it needs. Oh, I didn't give it access to certain things that are referenced that it doesn't have access to yet. So we need to make sure it give it that. Yeah, so it's also checking good things like going, if a scheduled task can't access things through the actual direct path, shall I offer the Dropbox connector? Yeah, great. So whilst this seems scary, you can see all the work it's doing. It'll always check if it's going to update something significant if you have it on manual, so you can kind of watch the steps step by step and be happy with where you are. Great, so it's updated everything. So all I now need to do is repoint the CoWork desktop app to the Dropbox folder, update the references in my main Claude MD files. This here is like the top level Claude MD locally, just to make sure it's clear that it knows where this is. So this, interestingly, we need to make the edits ourselves. So we can just do that by going in our user folder, is go Command-Shift-Dot, and it will reveal these other hidden folders, and we can find our .claude file. And this is where your kind of main Claude files live. You'll see a bunch of stuff. And if we go into Claude MD here and open this up, you need to make sure that you add a clear explanation of where everything lives. And I've put this right at the top, and it says this: it lives in this Dropbox folder, also known as Dropbox Claude CoWork. Read the files directly, and if they aren't directly reachable on phone or web session without the bridge, read the same files through the Dropbox connector. So this is what you should pause and copy and make sure you add into yours, referencing your own file routes. I also have a priority 1 identity gate, and this is really important to make sure it actually does things like load your skills. I'm asking it to, before every session, whatever it does, read my identity, and it can do that in the About Me folder if it's local, or otherwise it can do it with the skills that we created earlier. These are the key steps that you're going to need. I also have a full explanation of how it should use the About Me files and what sections are to make things like voice profile conditional and are only loaded when you're getting it to write things for you. So we're not overloading the system with context and tokens that it doesn't need. Now, another useful thing to remember here is that I'm actually maintaining my About Me files in the main folder where I keep all of these details, my context map specialist, routing, voice profile, writing rules. But some of these, like writing rules, voice profile, are now also skills. So what I've done in the main Claude folder, in the Claude section, is give it a hard sync rule, which is whenever I edit these, flag immediately that the matching skill must be rebuilt by Claude in order to keep them synced. So it's just a little reminder you write into your instructions. So those would be my recommendations for making sure that your Claude MD file is working really well. The other thing that I've done is make all of my global instructions be Claude MD files at the top of the folder structure. So in the global instructions for CoWork and for the account, I've just put specific simple instructions saying, follow the Claude MD at the root, and before you do anything, load my identity, read the About Me files, load them from the skills if you can't see them anywhere else. And that's really important because it means that this will work everywhere. The same goes for general, just have a general explanation saying the same thing. This just means it will work in chat as well. So it says, if you want to understand who I am, read these before you do something. And this just means that in chats, it can read the skills as well, and you know that you're going to have that personalized system. So that's all you really need now, because if we jump to our folders, you'll see we have in the Dropbox file, in Claude, we have the instructions at the top level. We've got our global instructions updated to be this. Pause the video if you want to copy that. And we've done the same in general with a little overview about who I am and then where the About Me folders can be found. So now I have Claude CoWork working across multiple devices, and this is how easy it is to set it up on a second device now. I'm gonna download the Claude app onto this new MacBook Air. Click on the download and drag Claude into applications. And we should now just be able to open Claude. Click get started, and we're just gonna sign in to my usual account. And there's Claude. Now, first of all, we've got all of our scheduled tasks, it's all there, and we can go to scheduled and we can see only the cloud items on there, right? Because they're not the local ones, but they are synced. So the next step, go to Dropbox, install Dropbox desktop app for Mac OS, click on the installer, double click, open. We can sign in with Dropbox, can choose the folders to sync, and I'm just gonna sync Claude. And as simple as that, we now have our Dropbox access on this page. So this is a different computer. We can see Dropbox is in there. There is Claude. All we now need to do is go to our Dropbox interface, right click, make available offline. Clear that out of the way. The last step is to connect this system to that same folder in Dropbox. We go Dropbox, Claude CoWork. Make sure it's downloading it. Click open, always allow, star it, And there you go. It's now working in the second computer. Now, you'll notice that the location of that is obviously, if your username on the computer is different, it won't read it. So it could potentially check to see if it can find that route. So it might be worth, if you have multiple computers, to make sure that your top level user folder, the house on Finder, is also named the same on both computers. But I don't think that's a big issue because essentially it's going to work locally on this one anyway, on this second device. So we're now set to go. We're set up on the folders. We can go into settings. You'll see that the same instructions are there as before. You'll see in Claude CoWork, we still have CoWork top level things because they're linked at the account level to explain it all. And you have at the Finder level, your Claude MD file synced across the computers. So let's test it out. What do you know about me from this week's work and my current priorities? Let's ask that question. It's all working beautifully. So for every new computer now, if I want to sync my Claude system into it, I just add Claude desktop, add Dropbox to the computer, select the folder, and I'm away. Great, you can see what I've been doing this week, and it can see that I'm working on a new Agentic Business Accelerator course for you lot. At this point, we should talk about the question of project folders and projects in CoWork. This is a wider conversation actually about where you keep your instructions and context for a project. People have been asking me about this since I released CoWork OS. So let's just have a little look at this because I'm currently only really using projects to group chats, nothing more. And let me show you why that is. If we go back to CoWork and go into projects, this is a project I set up to work with my personal assistant. And what I mean by that is in my CoWork OS setup, I have in work areas, different areas of work and projects. And within here, one of these could be a project. So for example, in commercial, I might have a project on the Agentic Business Guide that I'm working on. And this could be set up as a chat. Maybe I'd like to set my project to be the commercial wing of my business and we could link it to that folder. Or in this instance, my admin PA, which helps me work and run captain's logs, daily briefings, capture tasks, that kind of thing. The issue with this is if when we set up a new project, if you use a folder and you hover over that, you'll see here it says setting a folder keeps this project on this computer so it won't sync and share. So you can't give it the context of the folder of your system. So I think that's a bad idea. So what you could do is do admin and PA work, a place to link all chats relating to talking to my admin PA in the CoWork OS. This is a different type of project, and as you'll see, we can then add bespoke instructions for how it should work. Now, the great thing about that means that then when I click on project in mobile, I can see admin and PA work, and we can see those instructions and files linked across it. The same goes for all the old ones. These were created in chat, so I can see my old projects in there, but it's not linked to a folder because what you'll see in projects on the computer is that my personal assistant system, which now says local on it and is linked to the context of my admin PA and about me files, I can't see it on here. So it's all a bit strange and limited. So I would recommend that what you actually do is we scrap this approach because it doesn't allow you to use it on mobile. If you want to use projects and just keep it on your computer, then absolutely you should set up a new project and use a folder, go to your CoWork setup and select the folder, and that's how you link that folder to those projects locally. But if you want to use projects both on mobile and syncing across the cloud, just create a project not linked to a folder, go into that, in the instructions add, make sure that you always work by first loading this folder from the root. If you can't access it locally, make sure that you work within this folder via the Dropbox connector to find the same folder. And then you would link the folder in here. Now that's all I can find at the moment to make that work. Whether it works or not, you'll have to let me know. But that's exactly why I'm personally not using projects for anything other than just starting chats in here, adding the folder I want to work in and grouping them into one place. So the other advantage to doing this approach, which is to select your top level CoWork folder, star it as the thing it always works in, and then just ask it to go and find the project. Let's go and work on my ABA course content project. Where are we at? This will mean when we ask Claude to go and check that out, it will go through the system, find work areas, go into commercial in my areas, find the ABA course content project, and it will be able to read its memory, its project brief, and see the outputs it's created already within that area. Now, look, it will take a bit more time, but it does mean that I have two great advantages here. One, we can work from a single source of truth and we can find it when we're on mobile. And two, if you ever want to take your entire CoWork system and use it with something other than Claude, a local model, whatever else, all you would really need to do is go in and change the top level files to match the system you want to work with. Some things are agents.md instead of claude.md, and you'd be able to basically ship this whole thing out and use it with another LLM. That is great practice long term. So I hope that is a useful insight into why I only use projects to group the session chats. And there you go. Look, you see, it has found the course content project where we're at. It's read the brief, it's read the memory log. And there's nothing to worry about. So all that's left to do now is check that it works both on mobile and on the computer. So first on the computer, go and select the new CoWork folder. You can star it so that it always picks it. And we know it's only looking at that. And let's ask it a simple question. What's currently on my list to do in my tasks list in the admin PA? What's my latest product being developed? So we can see it's working in the folder, and we can, if we hover over it, we can see it's the correct folder. Great, so it can see I need to do a few things with Virgin Internet. It's read my local tasks MD, said I need to follow up with some people. This is all great. It's now using Notion, fantastic. And if we go into Claude, there is the task running on the mobile version, and you're getting an exact replica of that process. So it has all the answers. It's clearly reading what we need it to read, and we can see in here where it's worked. So if you ever want to see what it's actually read, you can see it's listed there. This is fantastic. And then what's interesting is we can pick it up here and we could ask it a different question and see how it grabs the information. I'm going to use Whisperflow, my favorite dictation tool. How many entries are currently in my productivity knowledge base? So this will mean that it needs to query the knowledge base in the system. So if you take a little look on my CoWork, I have a knowledge section in here, and there's the productivity knowledge base, and in it we will see there's a bunch of outputs and raw items, a wiki. That's all from my Kapathy knowledge base build demo if you wanted to check that out. Great. Now what's interesting is it can just read them directly, given probably that it's connected up to the computer and we started it on the computer. Let's try that question with a new task that starts from mobile and see the difference. How many entries are currently in my productivity knowledge base, and what's the latest wiki entry? So it's following my Claude MD file before it does anything else. That means it's following the global instructions. It's using tool search. This is great news. So no local folder is mounted here. Let me locate the CoWork folder via Dropbox and read it from there. This is exactly what we want to see it doing. I'm going to show you exactly how to make sure that this is foolproof with the final step next, which is updating your Claude MD file and your Claude global instructions to ensure it knows where to look. But you can see, look, using the standing identity gate and then looking into the knowledge base. Now, obviously this is a little slower on mobile, but we do have the access. It can do it. This is the difference. It means that it can work with my knowledge. I can set it on a task and come back and look at it, which is the whole point of CoWork. It works as a task on its own rather than in a chat. And you can see it was able to read it. It's told me how many things it's read. You can also see what sources it's read within those folders. So it's done a great job. This means that I can now do things like this, have a quick admin PA session. So I asked it, for example, what should I work on today? And it went and looked through my PA assistant that's built into CoWork OS, read all of the stuff that I'd spoken to it about, and it drew out the information. And it even then, from here, went and updated my calendar, updated my Notion task list for me, all through a conversation, all on mobile. Absolutely amazing. So it really is making a big difference. But there's one small caveat that you need to be aware of when it comes to using this setup on mobile. When you're updating on the local folder that is synced and available offline, you can make a file update by the block. So you could get it to update a single line in an existing file, and you will then have that synced wherever you want to find it. However, the one limitation at the moment is this. On mobile, it can reach the same files through the connector. It can't change block by block or edit an existing file. For that, it would have to either replace it or create a new file. But it can read and it can create files. So for most mobile work, I'm kind of happy with that level of detail. It just means you can't make small adjustments to existing files. Unfortunately, that will be things like it can't update its memory locally. So this is a bit of a shame on mobile. Maybe we'll find a way to get Dropbox to solve that problem for us. And if you don't work alone, there is technically the opportunity now to use CoWork OS across multiple team members. The only problem is that you don't want to be editing the same folder at the same time, or you'll have these kind of collisions of what's the latest and correct adjustment. That's where something like GitHub that can manage and do version control could be a better option if you're technically open to using GitHub in a similar way. It doesn't have quite the same setup though. And so if you want to download the closest version to this setup you can get, drop it straight into a Dropbox folder, make it available offline, and start with CoWork. It'll onboard you automatically. All of this, the skills, everything are built into my latest CoWork OS, and you can download it at bettercreating.com/CoWork OS. And if you want the shortcut, CoWork OS is the templated version of exactly this, ready to drop into Dropbox via bettercreating.com/CoWork OS. If you'd rather build it by hand, well, you should go and check out my full video on how to do that. I'll link it at the end, and you can check out the prompt if you want to migrate your existing setup off your computer to an online location like Dropbox or G Drive. And if today made you realize the real job is getting your whole business ready for this, not just Claude on your phone, then that's exactly why I'm building the Agentic Business Accelerator, a 5-week cohort for non-technical founders who want a working AI-powered system, not another course that sits unwashed. This is a live training with a bunch of templates for Notion and Claude to help you and your team set up in a meaningful way and keep AI simple. So join the waitlist over at agenticbusinessmethod.com, where you can get founder member access first. And you can start by trying out our free Agentic Business Readiness Scorecard that we built. And speaking of building it, we built it in a day entirely on Lovable. There's a video on the channel. Go and watch that next, because it really is kind of amazing what you can do in Lovable, and you can see the results at that agenticbusinessmethod.com website. It'll be great if you subscribed here, and I'll see you on the next one for more Claude, AI, and Notion fun. See ya.